Robotic objects, also called non-humanoid robots, are interactive objects that react to human behavior. From a design perspective, they are not confined to human or animal form and provide a great freedom of design and aesthetics. In this work, we present a novel robotic object, designed according to evidence-based design guidelines.
In the user-centered design process, we focused on the growing population of older adults that have the potential to reach successful aging, leading healthy, independent, and active life. Reaching successful aging is known to have both cognitive and physical advantages. However, not many technologies are designed to support and promote successful aging. A common emotional challenge in reaching successful aging is related to older adults' subjective feeling of not being seen, typically experienced as feeling invisible, set aside, and unacknowledged by others.
We wanted to explore if minimal movement of a non-humanoid robot is sufficient to evoke a feeling of being seen among healthy older adults. We present today the design, implementation, and lab study of the novel robotic object, measuring the effect on healthy older adults' willingness to accept and their feeling of being seen.
We would like to invite Dina, the undergraduate research assistant who worked on the project, to present the full research.
This work started with a previous study by our lab team, a need analysis study with 30 healthy older adults, in which we mapped their attitudes and preferences towards robots. In that work, we presented 3 design guidelines for robotic companions that are designed specifically for healthy older adults. The first, a valid primary function. Robots should be designed with a primary function that is significant for healthy older adults' well-being. Companionship cannot be that function. The second, authentic appearance. The robot's appearance should reflect the object's function and should not pretend to be something it is not. And the third, social cues as a secondary function. Social interaction should be integrated as a secondary function, not as the main one. Previous work includes studies of technology for older adults, from companion robots to tangible interfaces. There are several works in the field of companion robots. Most of these robots are humanoid or zoomorphic, designed as lovable creatures with lifelike appearance. Studies with these robots show that they are effective for clinical populations, but healthy older adults reject them and do not consider companionship as a valid function for themselves. In the TUI field, several prototypes were created with older adults. Blossom is a prototype designed as 2 vases with flowers and family photos, allowing the transmission of voice messages between older adults and their family members. The shape of the flower indicates that a message was sent. The messaging kettle is a prototype evaluated in a workshop with older participants, designed to enhance connectiveness between family members through voice messages. These TUI prototypes are inspiration from a design perspective. Studied with non-humanoid robots showed it is possible to evoke a social experience using nonverbal gestures. Seminal studies with everyday robotic objects, such as the automatic door and the mechanical ottoman, examined how people respond to a variety of movements. Participants constantly perceive the object's movements as social cues, with human-like characteristics, including cognition and intent. In our own previous work, the greeting machine, we showed that an abstract-looking robot with minimal movement is perceived in a social context. Participants attributed positive or negative social interpretation to approach and avoid gestures of the abstract robotic object. In our most recent study, we showed that social association is an automatic cognitive process that cannot be avoided. These studies motivated our hypothesis that minimal movement of a non-humanoid robot can evoke a feeling of being seen among healthy older adults. We started our design process based on the 3 design guidelines. Function that is not companionship. Healthy older adults reject robots with a primary function of companionship. Based on interviews with 10 healthy older adults, we identified the following activities as meaningful and popular amongst this population: watching the news, playing card games, and playing word games to preserve cognitive ability. We focused on a word game and tested 3 types of word games in small pilots with older adults. The anagram style game was favored by the participants. To support the authentic appearance guideline, we designed the robot as an abstract geometric form to prevent association with human-like or animal-like forms.
The design process included sketches and cycles of rapid prototyping, from low-fidelity form mockups to high-fidelity mechatronic prototypes that were tested with a representative user. The form was designed so it will not be perceived as childish and will be appropriate in size for an older adult's home. The final design was a base with 4 pillars. Each pillar represents a small set of letters. When the pillars are rotated, 2, 3, or 4 letters words can be assembled.
And the last, social cues as a secondary function. Each of the 4 pillars is controlled by 2 motors, making it possible to perform a downward lean gesture and a rotation gaze gesture. In social psychology, gaze and lean gestures play an instrumental role in human-human interaction. They can increase feelings of friendliness and interest in an interaction, as well as empathy and rapport.
The animator started with a free exploration of movement that in her view represented behaviors such as welcoming, following, or excitement. The range of movement was deliberately limited, as we were intrigued to identify the absolute minimum movement that can still be perceived as social experience. Then, we conducted a gesture elicitation study with 4 professional dancers. The dancers stood in a row to simulate the object's form and were asked to perform specific behaviors while minimizing their feet and hand movement. The animator then analyzed the dancer's body language and mapped the core movement characteristics to the restricted robot morphology.
To evaluate our prototype, we conducted a lab study with 39 cognitively intact older adults, as a first step towards a future in situ study at older adults' homes. The goals of the lab study were similar to our research questions. Can minimal gestures of a non-humanoid robotic object evoke a feeling of being seen? Does the primary function influence the effect? And does the primary function influence participants' willingness to accept such a robot into their home? We decided on a between participants experimental design to measure the influence of the robot's primary function. Participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 conditions. The only difference between the conditions was the defined role of the robot and a slight adaptation in the robot's design to match the role. In the companion function condition, the robot was introduced as a robotic object designed to be a type of companion for people at their own home. The design adaptation included blue, red, yellow, and white tiles. In the game function condition, the robot was introduced as a robotic object designed to be a game that simulates thinking. The design adaptation included tiles with letters. And in the no function condition, the robot was introduced just as a robotic object. The design adaptation were gray and blue colored tiles. To evaluate the social experience of being seen, we conducted a semi-structured interview and analyzed it using thematic coding. To evaluate the willingness to accept, we used a quantitative acceptance questionnaire. Participants were unaware of the WAS control and perceived the robot's object's responses as autonomous. Before entering the room, participants were shown a picture of the robotic object, and then the specific function was described. When a participant entered the room, the robotic object reacted with a welcome gesture, while the older adult was invited to sit in front of the robot and explore it with their hands. After this initial exploration, the participant performed a short task aimed to enhance the robot's function. In the game function condition, participants were asked to rotate the pillars to create words and replace a specific letter with a different one. In the companion function condition, participants were asked to rotate the pillars to form a personally meaningful color arrangement and to replace the tiles with different color ones. In the no function condition, participants were asked to rotate the pillars and then replace the gray tiles with the blue tiles to explore the tile replacement mechanism. Participants in this condition could not choose the extra tile's color. When the task was completed, the participants were asked to move to the left to fill a questionnaire and then move back to leave the room in order to explore another prototype and then re-enter to create additional opportunities to experience the gestures. The coding led to 2 main themes. The first, terms and expressions related to the feeling of being seen. This theme was similar across conditions. And the second, terms and expressions related to participants' willingness to accept the robot to their homes. This theme was different across conditions. Almost all participants, 32 out of 39, in all conditions, described the robot's gestures using terms such as paying attention, attending, caring, listening, and seeing, collectively associated with feelings of being seen. This indicates that participants in all conditions associated the minimal gestures of the non-humanoid robot with a social context. The quotes ranged from mechanical-focused quotes to emotionally rich quotes. He probably has sensors so he can move and make me feel like he's paying attention to me, or there's someone there seeing me, listening to me, and I live alone now, and something like this can appease my loneliness if, for example, the robot will welcome me every morning when I come out of my kitchen with my coffee. Participants' willingness to accept the robot was highly associated with the robot's function. In the game function condition, 8 out of 13 participants accepted the robot, stating it is engaging, a thinking challenge, and interesting, and comparing it to crossword puzzles or Rummikub. 4 out of 13 participants did not feel that the game was challenging enough for them and stated that it is more relevant for children who are learning. In the companion function condition, 12 out of 13 participants rejected the robotic object, stating it is appropriate for someone else or rejecting it completely. 1 accepted the robot but stated that he will change it and add new features. In the no function condition, 6 out of 13 were trying to understand what the function is and explicitly stated that they do not understand the robot's purpose. 2 out of 13 intuitively gave it a social companion function and rejected it. 5 out of 13 intuitively gave it a meaningful function and were more willing to accept the robot. For example, a meditative object, a calming object, an object for supporting concentration, or a decorative object. It was interesting to see that the participants' own interpretation of the robot's function directly influenced their willingness to accept it. We compared the acceptance ratings of the participants in the companion function and the game function conditions. The no function participants' ratings were not included, as there was no single function to compare. The analysis shows significantly higher acceptance ratings in the game function condition. We presented the design, implementation, and evaluation of a novel non-humanoid robot designed to increase feelings of being seen among healthy older adults. Our findings suggest that even minimal nonverbal gestures performed by a non-humanoid robot that cannot directly mimic human behavior are successfully perceived by healthy older adults as a social experience. Participants associated their social experience with feelings of being seen. Furthermore, the robot's primary function had a significant impact on its acceptance. When the robot's function was perceived as companion, healthy older adults rejected it. When the function was perceived as a cognitive game, their willingness to accept significantly increased. Our findings are limited to the constraints of a lab study, to the specific design we evaluated, and to the specific functions we compared, companion versus cognitive game. Future work should evaluate the same social experience at older adults' homes in the context of their daily lives. To conclude, we suggest that even minimal gestures of a non-humanoid robot can be perceived as a meaningful social experience. So in sum, non-humanoid robots have a great potential to contribute to successful aging as companion robots that take various forms and designs and do not pretend to be artificial beings. This work was done by an interdisciplinary team of researchers, designers, dancers, and animator engineers, and students at the Media Innovation Lab at IDC Herzliya. Thank you so much for watching, and look our paper up.